Hello and welcome back. We're excited to have you with us, and we are about to embark on a conversation that is very important to me. It's close to my heart. I have a feeling that Utah has introduced me to a greater amount of activism, ironically, than any place I've ever lived in my entire life, and for that I have to say I'm not only grateful but very, very impressed. A part of that journey has been getting to know activists, some people who have become some of my dearest friends and folks who always provide me a constant source of inspiration. Tonight, we celebrate World Coming Out Day. It occurs to me that it's a more open concept than it's ever been, but of course there are some very specific parts and definitions of what coming out means for those who contemplate and engage in the process, and I'm excited to welcome a couple of activists this evening who have a great experience in changing hearts and minds, and we're going to talk all about it. Please welcome Rachel Edwards and my pal, good old Hillary McDaniel. How are you? Welcome.
Great. Thank you so much for having us on.
Absolutely. Rachel, nice to see you. As I was saying, I think we've
met before.
We've met before, but haven't had a chance really to chat. So I'm glad that you're here. And of course,
this is awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's an important conversation. And of course, girlfriend, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
While you were mentioning, coming out and how it's an important process, for people, I think as far as, in my experience coming out and experiences of people that I know in the community, the most important thing is to come out to yourself first and to realize who you are. And for a lot of us, we've lived a lifetime of kind of living in a straight world and not quite fitting in exactly, or in my case, growing up very Mormon, conservative, like I just had never pictured a life outside of being married to a man and, that being my existence until I was older. And, so everybody, you look at just Rachel and I, and we're both queer people in the community, and we couldn't be more different. Rachel is one of the most feminine people that I know in my life. I'm wearing Doc Martens and a sweater, and Rachel's always got heels on and always dressed to the beautiful fingernails. Like, we're so different, and our stories are so different, and a lot of times queer issues just get all lumped together in LGBT plus, our experiences in our life of coming out or being repressed are so different within ourselves. And then, when is the right time to come out to friends, come out to family, and, the significance of that. And for some people, there's a lot of safety in the closet. Specifically, trans people, they're under attack all the time. Trans women of color, the murder rates are really high. Just the amount of persecution in their community is through the roof. And so for some people, to have coming out day and to be encouraging everyone, just come out, it's so great out here. For a lot of people, it's not great, and they're not ready yet. And so it's important to note that, I think, on National Coming Out Day, everybody is where they are in their process, and it's important to respect everyone's process. And you may have this friend that you've known they were gay longer than they're just realizing it, and you're like, why don't you come out? And it's like, for me, I definitely it took me years and years after kind of realizing where I was at with my sexuality to kind of admit it to myself, and then to talk to friends about it, and then to talk to family about it. It's a process that doesn't necessarily happen all in one day, but it's really cool, I think, to celebrate it, to have it, on the national radar, and to be able to, have conversations about things like this, to even, be on your radar, to have it on your show today is huge. And all over the nation, conversations are happening that maybe have never happened before.
Yeah, for sure.
Rachel, talk a little bit about your journey and how you're feeling on this day. I'm sure you must be reflecting on many experiences.
Oh yeah. Well, speaking of the way I dress, I was actually 60 when I came out, and I feel like now I have 60 years to make up for in how I dress, and so I feel like I have to push it every day to just be me and who I feel I am and how I like to feel. I dress for me. I don't dress to impress anybody else. I dress to make me feel good, and and that.
I realize that this is maybe a difficult question, and maybe in this context with really bright lights on and
Wait,
that
are we
sort
on
of
TV?
thing. But that's right. Wait, as it turns out, we are actually on TV. The set looks so much like a TV set. It's actually real. I'm curious to this idea of looking back, and as you say, 60 years of. And I'm using this language from friends of my own who have come out and changed their lives in this wonderful way. Is there a residue of 60 years worth of this isn't who I am, or have you been able to just simply be in love with where you are now and finally getting to be who you've always known that you were?
Well, that's a funny thing. Actually, I just always knew something was wrong. I mean, when I was a teenager, I lived with my grandparents, and when they weren't home, I wore my grandmother's clothes and stuff, and but I never really put it all together until a few years ago, because I just always knew something was wrong. Never felt right. I never felt comfortable in my body or anything. I hated who I was. I couldn't stand to look at myself in the mirror.
Wow.
Just hated it. And then when I was telling Hillary on the way up here, when I started doing things to be more feminine, it was like a revelation. It was like for the first time ever, I could look in the mirror and love who I was. I was just so delighted.
It's beautiful.
I just wanted to see me. I felt beautiful. I just, like I said, I just, for the first time ever, loved myself and who I was. And it was it's quite a difference to feel that way.
And it occurs to me that, as Hillary was mentioning, and this is a heartbreaking reality to me, that simply by being who you are, you increase the potential for danger to your person. By the same token, if you hadn't taken that step, the ability to look in the mirror, but also this community that you have, and like I say, we've seen one another in social settings, and it's it's a pretty powerful and really beautiful group that you're a part of. And
no, I was total when I figured out who I was and started realizing that I was going to have to be me finally, and who I was terrified in Utah. I was like, oh my heavens, I'm in Utah. There's not going to be anybody to support me. I'm going to be all alone here.
Right.
And when I found the local community, I was just blown away by just how supportive they were and affirming, and how many people there were. My first outing in a skirt and high heels was at the 2014 Pride Festival. I decided to volunteer and see what that was like, and it was just amazing that's the first Pride Festival I'd ever gone to, and I was just blown away. Like, here's all these wonderful people accepting each other and, not judging you and it was just a heavenly experience. I mean, I was on cloud 9 that weekend, just, oh my heavens, I've found a community and stuff.
For who you really always were, and now are.
Yes, and like I said, it was scary though coming out to everybody after that. I was still pretty scared, and what was I going to say? But it turned out to be, I'm so happy now. I guess, like, I was scared to go after I came out, I was scared to go places that I'd frequented a lot before, like places that I hadn't been in, was fresh. It didn't bother me as much as going into places where they knew me really well, because I thought, oh, they're going to think I'm a freak. that I'm changing this and that. But I finally decided, this is me. I've got to go buy groceries.
Yes.
And so we got to find a spot here. And I finally decided I'm just going to march in there like I own the store. And and it was awesome for me. It has worked out beautiful.
That's just great.
Felt so much acceptance from just people in general. I've had very few people. A lot of people do double takes and that, but I've had very few people scowling at me or something like what's that, but overall it's been a 99% a great experience, being out.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that, and at the risk of sounding as though the difficult stories to tell and also the difficult stories to hear, they're still there. That lack of tolerance, that lack of human compassion is still out there, but it is nevertheless really heartening to hear a firsthand account that there has been a lot of positivity for you in this experience.
Oh yeah, it's been, I think I have more people I feel care about me. Just I've often wished like a hidden camera could have followed me around through Costco or whatever, and seen how people have responded to
Yes.
My therapist says, well, authentic people are more, people are attracted to people who love themselves and are
yes.
Happy with who they are and just, positive and smiling.
And as we were discussing before we came on air, my dear friend from all the way from childhood, Michelle Royal, back in the Quad Cities. I mean, the cavalcade of photos that she has of what her life is like now, and the people with which she is making the kind of joy that you're talking about it's so beautiful. It's really awesome. And for me to think of someone that I've known just about my entire life who was in some way restricted from being who she always was on the inside. And of course, that's the conversation that we've had that is so common. She said, I couldn't name it when I was in the 5th grade, but there was something, a thing there that now is flourishing.
Oh yeah, I feel like I realize now that I was always, I was a woman always, but I just never, I didn't look like a woman, so, it was hard to figure that out or sort that out and stuff. So.
Well, we're so glad that you get to be who you are 24 hours a day. That's fantastic.
I'm like 1,000 times happier than I ever was before.
That's so great. Hillary, we saw some great shots of the big gay bake sale.
Yes.
Which was the first annual. And there it is, the Gayest Bake Sale Ever.
Yeah, there we go.
I love it. That looks like some delicious cartoon cake. I love a slice of that.
Oh, that was one of the best experiences ever.
So great. Talk about the idea for that.
Well, my friend Kat and I were talking the day that the news came out about the LDS Church joining on to the Supreme Court case in support of the baker who refused to bake a cake for the same-sex couple in Colorado. So that came out in the Salt Lake Tribune, and it's just kind of a bummer day, to be honest.
Yes.
This kind of stuff happens all the time where the church does something like support the Love Loud Festival and throw a lot of words behind the LGBT, community. We love you, we see you, we accept you. But then in the next week, they'll throw money and political power and support behind something that would take away the rights of same-sex couples. So it's really kind of an up and down roller coaster when you're Mormon or used to be Mormon and you're in the queer community, because it's, one hand comes out and extends a loving arm and the next hand comes out and swats you away a little bit. And so we were just talking online, and another friend of hers, they were talking online and made a joke about, let's just start our own bakery and only sell to, gay people. Only, or let's charge straights double. And let's just, it's something it's kind of one of those things of like, you need to know how it feels to be treated different. So whatever that was. And so Kat mentioned something about, let's do something, and she said, well, let's have a bake sale. And I was like, let's do it. Like, I mean, just me and you on the corner, selling a few cupcakes, and we'll raise some money for the Pride Center. And it just kind of started, we just kept throwing more ideas, and maybe we'll get local bakeries to donate stuff, because we're like, I'm not going to bake all this stuff. I mean, we were talking about this on a Thursday, and we wanted to have it on a Monday, the following Monday. So because it was in the news, because we were hurting, we were just looking for a way to heal, because Monday is family home evening, all of these things just lined up perfectly.
Right.
So tried to get a permit, wanted to do it right across the street from the church office building to be very visible to the church, and wrote out a little press release, and just kind of over a weekend put this thing together, and it ended up being a pretty big deal. We raised over $2,000 for the Utah Pride Center in a matter of and 2 hours out on the street corner. We got online donations, matching donations, to where our total was about $4,400 that we raised for the Pride Center, and all of that money is going to a youth prevention suicide program. They have a program right now called the Survivors of Suicide Attempts, and it's for adults who have attempted suicide. You can go to a support group and talk with other people who have been struggling with that and who struggle with suicidal thoughts. And they've expanded this program to teenagers now, and the program's brand new, and we wanted to just bring some awareness to the program so that kids who are struggling know that this program exists, and also parents who have kids who are struggling know that there's a place that that might be able to help their children. I mean, and Rachel's story of going to the Pride Festival for the first time is such a good example about how awareness can change lives and save lives. Before Rachel ever went to a Pride Festival, I mean, she's 60 years old and has never had that experience, and it just goes to show you how much power there is in someone else, even one person just saying, me too, like, me too.
Yes.
I'm different too. Or I don't feel like myself, or whatever it is. The Pride Center has so many resources that when you're in the community, you start to learn about them. But I even, just doing this project, learned so much about what was available there and the kind of groups. And, I had to learn about it so I could tell people about it,
Sure.
that were coming out. But we had just about every news station come out to the bake sale that day. And the line was just, down the street. And we were waving pride flags and listening to a super gay playlist. We got YMCA going, and just all these great dance songs. And so, as an activist in the last year, I mean, we were together the night that Trump was elected. I remember at the Royal, I showed up with a cigar to celebrate Hillary Clinton's victory, my namesake and everything.
Right.
And then Trump was elected. And I remember that night very well. And ever since that moment in the last year, every community that was already under attack or marginalized in some way is even more. I feel like, I've doubled, tripled, quadrupled all of my activism efforts, and I still can't keep up. And a lot of people, in the communities that are hurting are just exhausted. And I've been to a lot of rallies, I've been to marches, I've been to protests, we've been to all of these different things just trying to get some attention to these issues, especially the healthcare battle recently. I was part of the group that helped block the street, down a state street with that big banner that said, "Senator Hatch, please don't kill us." I mean, these are the measures we're going to, because we're completely ignored by a legislature here. We've got mostly Republicans in there. They're kind of trying not to be pro-Trump, but not rocking the boat, and they're not really working for us. So
a difficult time for them too.
Yeah, I know, and we've had to take to the streets because we don't have the representation or protection that we need. And so the point is this bake sale was so much more of a celebration and a just get together with friends, and there's something about it kind of felt like a pride festival in a way, just being out, being yourself, and especially, I mean, to be across the church from the church building.
Yeah, and dancing and waving the flags, and it was just joyful. It was a celebration.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And that is
Yeah.
exactly the thing, and I've been kind of thinking about this, Hillary, with respect to when you talk about activism and when you talk about protests and protest movements, there are people all across the spectrum, and certainly there are a lot of people that are very angry, and of course, in nearly every case, rightfully so. That being said, the middle is where change happens, and it occurs to me that this kind of an event where you've made yourselves visible and sort of bigger than you actually are, part of the thing that it seems to me was what caught on in terms of getting some national news exposure and those kinds of important things was the joy that you had, the metaphor and the symbolism of a bake sale being something kinder, gentler. It's not like just using that imagery and blasting tunes and feeling good and rocking out. It feels to me, and I really want to encourage what you're already doing and just say that, I know that the more militant parts of activist groups, and I'm not saying a group in people in Utah or anything, I think you know what I mean, but by the same token, I think it's really important to encourage people who have maybe the courage to be moderate and inclusive.
Oh, definitely.
The fact of the matter is that the legislature isn't going to change here. Certainly not in any number of decades.
Right.
And that's a reality to work with, not against, like you say, to make yourselves visible, but also to have the kind of dialogue that I know that's taking place, much more so than ever used to. Talk about the future. Where do you go from here?
Well, I mean, part of having it at the location we did is not only did the church sign on, but 22 Republican state senators signed on to the case as well. And, up the other side of the street is the state capitol, right upstate, or the corner of literally what I like to call church and state in in Salt Lake City, And we wanted to get the attention of, the Republicans as well. Like, this is not okay with us. You don't represent us. Why are we going into another state, into another case, and getting involved, and when it gets to the Supreme Court, like, we're coming to this guy's aid to discriminate. Like, we just want to make it very clear that we're absolutely against that, and we won't vote for you, when you put your names on things like this. But as far as, the positive spin, there are times when anger is justified, and when the Charlottesville, riots happened. We had a solidarity rally down by the library, and there were some powerful, angry speeches. That's not the place to do a bake sale, right? So
well said,
but the number one thing that I learned about activism by doing this project was that you have to let the people who are in the community lead their movement. You have to let them lead the action. You have to let them present the ideas, because nobody could have put on an event like this except for two ex-Mormon queers like Kat and I, somebody in the community. We know what it's like to grow up Mormon.
Sure.
We know what it's like to...
And I know there's a lot of love still there through families
absolutely.
And all of these associations.
We both have, my parents are LDS. Kat's parents are LDS. I have a brother who's very active in the church, and I love them, and I know they love me. And so there is some love, and there's boundaries that we know shouldn't be crossed. There's boundaries I'm willing to cross sometimes when I'm really angry, but again, that doesn't get me anywhere. It gets me, I get to vent, I get to feel that anger, and I don't like being tone policed. I think my anger with the issues that I've faced is justified. But again, like, activism isn't just for you, right? You were trying to make a change in a community.
Well
so
said.
to take, what Kat and I knew that we were the ones that were hurting. We were the ones that even like I said, if nobody would have come to this bake sale, maybe a handful of friends, we would have still felt good because we just had to do something. And so I feel like anytime there's a community under attack, the immigrant community, when, ICE agents are going to people's doors and, deporting people left and right, that community knows their needs. They've known them for a lot longer. They are living this experience every day. And so, I've tried to approach activism that way, and I've learned from other activists, get out of the way and let the marginalized groups lead, amplify their voices, don't try to tell them how you think they should do, their movement, right? And I think for me, just being, I don't do a ton of activism specifically for LGBT people. I kind of all over the place with activism, a lot of feminist causes, but specifically for LGBT people, for suicide awareness, those are two things that are very personal to me. And, bringing Mormonism into that, those three things are very personal to me. And so for me to be the one doing activism for myself, it's a whole different approach and a whole different learning experience. And I guess I would just really encourage people, if you're not sure where to start with activism or who to volunteer for, or where to go, just start in your very own community, just whatever community that is. If you're a woman, get with other women. If you're a man, where do you think you should go for activism as a man? Like, where do you start? Do you even know? I mean, that's a really good question, because we've recently had these women's movements, and men are like, well, can I be involved? It's like, well, yes, you can be involved, but your place in this movement is to listen to the women and let the women lead. We've been women our whole life, and we can tell you where we've been oppressed, where we need help.
I try to keep my mansplaining down to zero.
But there are places for everyone, and until I had a transgender friend, I didn't know anything about transgender people. And I say that as someone who's studied, read things, but until I actually had a friend that I knew, that I cared about, that that I loved, I didn't know how to fight. I didn't even know what the issues were. And so volunteer in a community where you can make a friend who's different from you too. That's another thing, I just listening to Rachel's story, I've heard it a few times, and it's changed the way that I talk about trans issues. It's changed the way that I just walk through the world, and it's made me a better person for knowing Rachel. And all of my volunteer work, activism, I always meet people who make me better, who I learn from. And that's probably when you say, what's next, what's in the future, I hope that this gay bake sale movement inspires other people to do, whether it's a bake sale in your own community for this issue, to bring more attention to this whole ridiculousness about cake, and bring people together over cake, or some other idea. This idea that Kat and I came up with was inspired by other things here and there, different creative movements and creativity that we've seen in our own community and nationally. And any attention this gets, all I want from it is just awareness for this issue, and for other activists to see it and just get an idea, whatever that is, for whatever might help their community. Because it's been getting some attention locally, nationally. Just this weekend I interviewed with the Huffington Post, which is pretty cool, and we're going to be a part of their awesome. They're doing a what is it called, Talking Across America tour or something. So they're going to cities all over the US, focusing on one issue in that city and interviewing people, and doing little mini documentaries. So now the Gayest Bake Sale Ever is going to be part of this little mini documentary that the Huffington Post is doing. Really cool. And they're doing a bus stop tour, coming to Provo with it. And so I really just want this issue to be just out there for people to see different perspectives on it, and people, like real people who are in this community and who are, suffering when, when the big dogs, when the government and the church comes out and tries to take away our rights,
Well, it's great work you do. It's fun to at times be a part. It's also fun to be a fan and to be. I don't know what the right word is. I don't think the word impressed is the right thing, but so impressed, so grateful for what you do on behalf of tolerance and compassion in the world. And I feel like times are changing here in Utah, and I feel like
think
tolerance
so.
and compassion are things that a lot of good people in the LDS Church and just in our culture here are becoming
Yeah.
more aware, as you say. Thank you for all that you do, and happy Coming Out Day.
Thank
I'm
you.
so
Oh,
glad
thank
that
you.
both of you have come out to be a part of this movement, and of course I'm super grateful that y'all are here.
Yeah.
And thank you for including me in what is really a wonderful, fun, enriching group to hang out with. And I think we should probably say what's up to all our pals, Shell and
Shell.
Erica and
Shell,
Kat
yes.
and all the crew who couldn't be here tonight, but I've had such a wonderful time with. And good luck,
Oh,
good
Thank you.
Well,
fortune,
thank you
good
so
strength
much.
to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, you guys, quick break. We're going to talk about fitness because we have a couple ridiculously fit people here. More on that right after this.